Several protests took place in Israel over the summer in the name of social justice. And while some of the riots did turn violent, the one that took place in Tel Aviv this past Saturday night marked a twist in the story, as a man facing housing difficulties set himself on fire in the name of the protest. Within the few days since the incident, there were several other reported suicide attempts by Israelis facing similar challenges in life.
The man who doused himself with gasoline on Saturday night is one extreme example. He didn't have any kids. He wasn't married. But there are tens of thousands of Israelis who are trying daily to deal with the problem of having a roof over their heads and enough food to feed their kids. And the government isn't doing enough about it.
Last summer, the protests revolved around the issue of real estate and housing as well. Tents were put up and placed on boulevards around the country in order to convey the message that middle-class Israelis simply cannot afford to buy or own a home.
The problem is lack of attention to the most vulnerable and weakest parts of the society. Explicitly, Israeli government policy is to deal with those who can help themselves, and a lot of people are falling through the tattered, falling apart safety welfare network. Once upon a time, Israel had an incredibly impressive welfare network with terrific health care and housing for every immigrant who arrived on the shores. Today, we're at almost the opposite end of the scale. Compared to OECD countries, we're on the bottom. If in Austria there's 38 public housing homes for every 1,000 people and 19 in England, in Israel, we're at only 9.
In an attempt to deal with this new phenomenon of financially driven acts of desperation, a new task force is being put together these days, led by the National Insurance Institute and the Welfare Ministry. The goal of this task force will be to detect severe cases of personal anxiety amongst Israeli citizens and to be able to intervene when necessary.
The idea seems to be, let's examine the most extreme cases of people in distress and provide aid for them with a task force composed of heads of the bodies that should provide assistance. Once upon a time, there was a job in the Ministry of Housing for the woman who answered the cases of people who said, I'm going to set myself on fire unless you give me public housing. There was a literal person whose job that was. She's retired. This committee is an example of the same, is resurrecting that job. That's not dealing with the problem. The problem is the social welfare network is falling apart, not that here and there someone's gotten through the holes.
And so, according to some experts, unless the Israeli government will begin investing in further developing the social welfare network, the problem of public housing in Israel will remain. For JN1, I'm Sivan Raviv, Israel.